before we get started, so I know who I'm talking to, who here is in product? Oh, okay. Any designers? Engineers? Sales? Co-founders? All right, am I missing anything? Shout it out? No? Okay, awesome. Ready? Yeah. So I want to start by saying that I believe that design can change the world. Actually, let me take that back. I believe that great design can change the world. But let's start with, what does design really mean? So the Strat School of Design says that design is a process of envisioning and planning a solution for people to address a need or a problem. The Swedish Industrial Design Foundation says that design is a work process which has a user perspective and drives development based on a specific customer need. And then the folks at Figma say that design is problem solving. Design is an act of listening, empathizing, and acting on that information. So what I'm hearing is that there's a user, a problem, and then a solution being created, right? So I'm here to tell you a story about users and how understanding them led us to product adoption, growth, and company growth. Before I jump into this, let me give you a little insight into why I love what I do. So, bonjour, mon nom est Melissa. Hi, my name is Melissa. Je suis québécoise. I'm Quebecer, French, Canadian, call it as you want. I grew up in a suburb of Montreal, which is French-speaking, but spent 4 years of my early childhood in Toronto, which is English-speaking. So this is me, no comments. This is, it was the 80s. So this is me in first grade. My school was bilingual. My actual class was half French, half English. So being in these different types of environment, enhanced with different languages, and being in the middle of English Canada and the United States really started my journey into understanding different points of view really early. Then when I was 18, I attended Polytechnique of Montreal. I studied computer engineering. So at that time, what that meant was that I was one of 3 girls in a 300-plus student year. But that was also my first introduction to solving problems for users. Then I changed my trajectory completely, 180, 360, and went into fashion design. So there, we still were solving problems. The medium was different. The user was different. When I was 25, I moved to New York to work for a company called 555 Soul. I see some smiles. I get it. We were in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, before Williamsburg was what Williamsburg is today, right? But it was still up and coming and trendy. So we were, the hot shots. We were like wearing the cool clothes, designing the cool clothes. One day, our head of sales comes to us and says, well, I think you need to understand your customer a little better. So he takes us to a mall in New Jersey, right? No offense. It was just different. It was different. Yeah. It was just different. But really, the lesson there was that we needed to be in our customer's shoes. We were designing for this girl, while our customer really looked like this. Also, to add to this, I traveled a lot. I had the luxury to travel a lot during my, even early, but I still travel, right? Seeing different cultures, different ways of life is really inspiring, and it opens your mind. I see some nods. I think people that travel understand that and get that. And I still travel today because it really helps me question the assumptions that I make on a day-to-day basis about people. So all these experiences naturally led me to study people, study humans, and just learn about them, right? How they act, how they feel, their different points of views. Because at the end of the day, We're really all human, right? So I spend a lot of time thinking about people, their differences, their similarities, their motivations, their struggles. And then even though we're all very different, at the base, at the foundation, we're all really the same, right? So everyone has their own unique traits, dreams, aspirations. But the basic human needs have always been the same. So most of my time, I operate from the fact that everyone wants to be loved and understood. So now let me introduce you to a project I'm currently working on. I'm the creative director for a company called LaunchDarkly. We are a feature management platform. Who here has heard of LaunchDarkly? Okay. Any customers of LaunchDarkly? Almost. Okay, awesome. Well, everyone else, we're in the hallway over there. Come talk to me. But really, what's a feature management platform, right? So we let you control your features. Well, we let teams control their features, right? And by teams, I mean all teams. Engineering teams, product teams, marketing teams, sales teams, design teams, whatever teams. What we do is we let you separate your code deploy from your code release. What that means is an engineer writing their code, they're done, they can merge back into their master branch without the customer seeing it, right? They can turn it off. Or they can turn it on just for themselves and test. And when the larger company, the larger team is ready for the customers to see the features, then they turn it on and off. On top of that, you can also create different variations of your feature. You can send your feature to your beta customers. You can send 10% to Japan, 50% to France. You just have really granular control over your feature. And the really interesting part and challenging part of this project is the all teams part. So before we get into the real plot of this, let's review quickly why personas are important. So personas let us answer these questions, right? Who are we designing for? What are the pain points? What assumptions are we making? So we've all seen the traditional persona. Here's Martha. Martha is a software engineer. She has 2 kids. She has a nanny. She lives in San Jose, drives to work, goes to the gym, all those things, right? So why another talk about persona, you ask? Well, because they evolve. And I don't think that we talk about this enough. So we're in a world where, we have to build better products faster, right? And I feel like that's all I hear. So the faster we build products, the more products get released. The more products get released, the more people view products or exposed to products. The more people are exposed to products, the more they evolve. The more bored they get, and the more they want, right? We hear that over and over. Now think about your company. As you grow, as your company grows, your product offering might grow as well. So your personas might expand. And then what you built for Martha 2-3 years ago, is that still serving her needs? Are you all still going in the same direction? And now think about your enterprise or B2B company. So in this case, obviously, your customer is another company, right? They also have to move fast. So they might need to change how their workflow works, or they might need to reorganize how they're structured. I also think there's just a lot of complexities in enterprise design, workflows, personas, that we haven't explored yet. So let's dig in a little more into enterprise design and enterprise personas. So somewhere along the line, someone set the expectation that enterprise products could be a terrible experience, and that was okay, right? I didn't put no screenshots. I know you all have the image in your head, right? I know how it happened, but That's the situation. And then other enterprise products started coming up. And then they looked at the competition and they said, well, that's a terrible experience. I don't need to invest in design. My product can be terrible as well, right? So we already know that knowing our user well and in depth helps us build better products for them. So in your enterprise or even B2B product, isn't the user the actual human using it? So I want to help switch the mindset around enterprise design. And I want to argue that the customer of your enterprise product is not the company you're selling to, but it's actually the individual using it. And that they have their own unique tasks, goals, traits, hopes, and dreams, and that they all have the same basic human need. So now let's come back to enterprise design. In that case, who are you designing for? So at LaunchDarkly, we started to build for the engineering team. That was an easy way. Our vision was always to have all teams use this product, but it was an easy way for us to test our product market fit, to get feedback early. So let's look at personas in this case. So the engineer, Martha, she's a developer I see, right? Individual contributor. So when we started looking at all of the kind of job titles or people in the engineering team who could use LaunchDarkly, we came up with all these different titles. It was just too many. The traditional persona was not going to work for us in this case. So not only that, we looked at these titles across enterprise companies and small and medium businesses because we were serving both. And we found that the roles, they actually don't cross, they don't mesh. They're different in both types of companies. So of course, no way this was going to work for us. The other thing that we have to think about is the company growth and trajectory. So our number of customers expanded exponentially. That meant that we had to address different use cases, different industries, different compliance needs. A great example of that is once a lot of e-commerce companies came through, or even airlines or such, they wanted to test their different variations. So we added experimentation on top of feature flags. Then there's the team size. Not our team size, but the customer's team size. So we started designing for the small engineering team, right? But then they loved the product, they told their friends, they told everyone else in the company, and all of a sudden we have to build team features. Then as a SaaS and dev tool, it's important for us to understand the development maturity of these companies. So you still have the legacy waterfall type companies that might deploy or release twice a year, once every 6 months, once a quarter. While you still have the cool kids that might be releasing multiple times a day. In more mature companies, we developed a data export system so that they can export all of their data to do in-depth analysis. And then lastly, there's also the cultural context, right? We're global, we sell across the world. Different, development mentalities are different across the globe, but also the compliance needs, right? Who did not hear about GDPR last year? If you have not, come and see me after. We'll talk about GDPR. One other thing on top of that. So you think you know your user, right? You probably don't. There is nothing better than being in a user interview, and I'll get some giggles if you have been through this. And you know exactly how your product is meant to be used, but then the user walks you through how they're using the product, and it's just completely different, right? And then now let's add some constraints. So we're a very small team. Currently, we're 3 product designers. As of yet, we're hiring. There is no time. So there is no way that we can possibly design for everyone. So then what do? What's the answer? We lean into this concept of archetypes. So we can't design for the engineer. We can't design for the architect. We cannot design for the DevOps IC. And we can't design for the VP of engineering. So let's bring back our original chart. What we decided to do is focus on the roles. And then when we combine that even more, this is what it looked like for us. So now we have a developer archetype, a manager archetype, an architect archetype, an admin archetype, and an executive archetype. And what that let us do is it let us narrow down our focus, narrow down the archetypes we're designing against, still addressing most persona, and eventually letting us dig into these even more, like job goals, product goals, behaviors. But that's not all. Here's another question for you. Who are you selling to? So when building sales and marketing strategy, or even just bringing in marketing moments in your product, you might not be talking to the same person. Especially in enterprise products, your buyer might not be your user. So we went through a similar exercise looking at the sales funnel. So who's the champion, who's the buyer, who's the blocker, who's the influencer? And then came up with all these job titles. And when we cross-referenced with our users, we saw that actually not many of them were users of the product. One more thing is that we have a self-serve and an enterprise product, completely two different mentalities. So the self-serve folks, they just want to buy a product and check out, right? So they want to do the trial on their own. They want to do the onboarding on their own. While the enterprise folks, they're dealing with a huge team, right? So they want someone that they can trust to tell them about their return on investment. They want a demo. They want help to implement this in their company. So here's our current state. We have these 5 archetypes. They're not perfect, and we know they will evolve, right? But that strategy really helped us narrow down our focus when designing and bringing a shared vision and vocabulary throughout the office, throughout the team. So now I walk through the office and I hear stuff like, well, is the rollout manager really going to do that? Or how is that going to affect the admin? And that makes me really happy because it puts us in their shoes, makes us see their point of view. But also, if we're building a feature for the admin, for example, we make sure that we're not causing pain points or bringing up new pain points for the developer. So by building products for our users and marketing and selling to our buyers, we were able to connect with the people, the individuals that we were trying to communicate to. And that led to a growth in product adoption, and it keeps growing, right? So that means increase in revenue, increase in accounts, increase in users per account, increase in retention. So what's the future? Well, of course, I don't know. But is there a world where feature management could let us create these micro experiences for each persona, where a user would tell us who they are, what they want, and then we serve them that experience? Or what if we let the user choose their own experience? But we're not there yet. We're still a small team. We still have no time. So what's the answer? Well, again, no solution fits all. I just shared what works for us, but I definitely know that it's going to change in the next year, right? Keeps evolving. But what I do know is that we should all invest in design or invest in user-focused teams. Teams that will have the voice of the user at heart, that will be the representative of the user. And then archetypes and personas, they evolve. Keep talking to your users. That's the best way to evolve with them and do that consistently, right? Talk to them about their mission, their vision, their dreams, their aspirations, and their needs. Also, what really helped us, and what I suggest, is talk to your sales team and talk to your customer success team or any team in your team that has a different relationship with the user that you don't have. They'll help give you insights into your users. And do this constantly. We all know this. The world evolves really quickly. But for us to be successful, we also have to be able to evolve at the same pace as people are evolving. So keep learning, keep evolving. The work is never done, but that is definitely why I love it. And let's keep reminding ourselves that users are actually humans. And that if we can think about it this way, we might have an easier time building products for them. And that archetypes are still groups of users, still groups of humans. And especially in enterprise product, that your customer is not the company, but it's actually the human using your product. And again, human basic needs have not changed. They're still the same. Everyone wants to be loved and understood, right? Thank you. Any questions? I also have some cards of the archetypes up here if you want after the talk. Any questions? Oh.
So I'm interested about the personalized experience for SaaS product. So what are your thoughts about the trainings and the after-launch kind of support if you do deliver a personalized experience for a SaaS product?
Yes, great question. We're definitely not there, but that's definitely the vision, right? Every one of these folks that you're building products for, they have the different needs, right? So there is a world where you can create personalized. You probably already do it, right? You're personalizing your training for your different users, but it's really done one by one. And maybe there is a world where you can change the experience, optimize, automate, and use feature management in that way.
Love the presentation. Love how you actually walked us through a user journey in a phenomenal way, and where you said personas can't be done, but distilling them down into something common helped. And then later on, you had a slide about involve your customer success team. How do you feel about actually bringing all the stakeholders, if you can, into a room and then apply either design thinking or design sprint principles in order to get to where you want to get to quicker and faster?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me answer the question before the quicker and faster. So while we did that, we did have all stakeholders in the room. We did multiple sessions. We had everyone in the company. I made sure that there was one representative from each department to do this. I didn't do this on my own. Absolutely not. I know nothing about this stuff. I know a little bit. But I think it's super important, right? It gets alignment. It gets points of view in the room. Every time it's hard, right? You have to balance what's too expensive of a big meeting and what's too expensive in time and, the right amount of input. But I'm a big believer in bringing all of the points of view in one room before even building the product. So that includes the user, but that also includes all the folks in the company and the stakeholders.
Hi. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
I love this concept of B to H because as a product manager, I'm always trying to take a human-centered approach to the products that we build. But oftentimes with B2B, your users, and you mentioned this, don't always make the decision to purchase. And so what are the challenges with that, and how do you kind of like manage, or tips on how to still reach the end user, but still convincing those people who would not use a product that this is something worth investing in?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the better your product is serving your user, the bigger champion they're going to become. So a lot of times if you're trying to sell the product, if you can reach that champion, show them the value. And then, of course, you have to talk to the buyer and see how in their org this is going to, save time and, in our case, is going to avoid risk and is going to let people sleep in the weekend, right? Right? It's simple stuff, right? Everyone wants to be loved and understood, and they want to sleep. So I think that I think you have to be conscious of who you're talking to, yes. But both of those are folks that are in the sales funnel and that are in the sales kind of strategy. That make sense? Yes.
Hi. You mentioned talking to users. What other metrics or benchmarks do you use to let you and your team know that, hey, it's time to refresh a persona?
In our company, we talk a lot. We communicate a lot. We're on Slack a little too much. But it really creates a moment that we see all the product requests coming in from users, right? Like product feedback, either going to support tickets, either going to the customer success team, either coming from the app. We see all of these. So, and we hear from the sales folks what kind of, this feature was really well received, but they're looking for this. So it's a bunch of conversations together, and we start seeing the trends, right? So of course, we work with EnjoyQ to kind of get all of our research together and bring out insights. We use Airtable, we have multiple different systems to kind of aggregate these insights. And I think it's just a feeling like we're starting to see the trend. And we have a lot of folks in with customers, right? Like the sales team, the field marketing folks, they're all over. So there's always a communication with the customer or the prospect, and it all comes back into the company. You're welcome. Anything else? All right, thank you.